Enemy of Justice is a core booster set in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. Released worldwide on May 17th, 2006, it was the first set to introduce a new subset of an already existing archetype, the Destiny Heroes. Releasing much later in the year than the usual first core set of previous years, Enemy of Justice also introduced some banishing support cards, then called Removed from Play, as well as some of what would be known as counter fairies. This set included some real nostalgia bombs for me. One of the cards on this list is one I still play in a couple decks I have in Master Duel, so it must have some staying power. But without further ado, let's jump into my top 10 favorite cards in Enemy of Justice. And up first on the list at number 10 is Cyber Phoenix. Cyber Phoenix is a fire level 4 machine effect monster with 1200 attack and 1600 defense with an effect that reads, while this card is in attack position, negate any spell or trap effects that target one machine monster you control and no other cards. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can draw one card. Hey, not gonna lie, this card ain't too shabby for back in 2006. Nothing meta-defining, but solid. When a Yu-Gi-Oh player sees the words, "you can draw," you bet your ass people try to make it work. Plus, if you had a board of machine monsters, any of them in attack position were basically not able to be affected by spell or trap targeting. While they technically could be targeted, but the effects themselves would be negated, so it's basically the same thing. Not too many spell or trap cards back then were single targeting of monsters, but it may come up here and there. Look, I'm coping about that first effect, but the draw effect could be used on your turn if you crash this thing into anything higher than 1200 attack, which was pretty common at this point in the game. It's basically card neutral, but digging deeper into your deck may be just what some players needed. Oh yeah, I was talking about why I like this thing so much. Well, the effects are cool, but also the artwork is sick. Like, the name doesn't really lie. It do be a phoenix who is definitely cyber. Not much else to say except that the nostalgia value of this card was pretty low for me, so it really only makes it at the lowest spot on the list. And up next at number 9 is E, Emergency Call. E, Emergency Call is a normal spell card that simply says, add one elemental hero monster from your deck to your hand. Whoa! A non-once per turn Omni search for a whole archetype. Now that's what I call music. Anyway, this Lord Marquard meme over here is just such good support for what was, at the time, not a very good archetype. But nowadays, there are so many use cases of this card that you don't really even need to be playing straight elemental hero for it to be useful. It's rarely ever a brick unless you do draw the garnets. If hero was ever a fully meta strategy, I can see them either limiting this card or even banning it if it gets out of hand. Well, technically it'll always get out of your hand, but that's beside the point. Playing this card in my E-Hero decks as a teenager, either against my brother and friends or in the various video games I had, was so clutch in many games. Getting a damn Stratos with this card felt unbeatable. A searcher that searched your searchers was real Yu-Gi-Oh! 2 pilled, and that was during Yu-Gi-Oh! 1. I guess that's why they eventually banned Stratos, since he could also just search another searcher, and not once per turn as well. I wonder if the emergency they're being called for is the explosion going on in the background. Oh god, what if it's a children's hospital? Damn, Dylan, that was dark. And at number 8 on the list is Icorus Attack. Icorus Attack is a normal trap card with the following effect. Tribute one winged beast type monster, then target 2 cards on the field, destroy them. Not really used by me until later on in its lifespan, once the Blackwing archetype came out in the 5Ds era, but my god, did I play it then. The effect may be card neutral, like with Cyber Phoenix, but it's honestly so much more impactful. Getting a leg up on board tempo, being so flexible on when you can use it, as well as targeting any 2 cards on the field, including monsters, back row, and even your own stuff to proc floating effects. So much versatility in one card is why it did see play. The artwork is also so badass. The literal power of the sun vaporizing what looks like a certain monster that may be on the list later on is peak Yu-Gi-Oh! Card artwork design. All in all, while I never really owned or played it as an elementary school kid, I do have a good bit of nostalgia for it in the high school years, which is why it's at a lower spot on the list. And up next at number 7 is Destiny Destiny Hero Diamond Dude. Destiny Hero Diamond Dude is a dark level 4 warrior effect monster with 1400 attack and 1600 defense with an effect that reads, once per turn, you can excavate the top card of your deck, and if it is a normal spell, send it to the graveyard. Otherwise, place it on the bottom of your deck. During the main phase of your next turn, you can activate the effect of that spell in your graveyard, even if you no longer control this face-up card. I don't understand why the community doesn't just shorten his name, sort of like they do with Reinforcement of the Army to Rhoda or MST for Mystical Space Typhoon. It's so obvious. Double D. Why are you guys looking at me? I get it, because titties. Anyway, this guy is honestly kind of dripped the hell out. Hype beasts and finance bros wish they could. Oh, you got ice on your wrist? This guy's got ice as his wrists, as well as diamonds, oh, I don't know, all over his body. Plus, you don't with that Gucci shit. He got the Destiny belt. Okay, now that I've made everyone feel poor, let's talk about why I like this guy so much. Platonically, of course, I'm engaged. Him being one of the first wave of Destiny heroes, he really did make a splash in competitive play, being played in a deck called Diamond Dude Turbo as well as Airblade, once both Stratos and Disc Commander came out the next year. Like, his effect is both super cool and unique, even for today's standards. Although slow nowadays, back then being able to get off a Diamond Dude effect and milling a good draw spell that had a cost like Destiny Draw was pretty damn good. Since he's only copying the effect, there would be no cost you had to pay. So milling D-Draw is just a pot of greed on your next turn. I don't think Double D over here was broken in and of itself, but the cards that eventually surrounded him were the ones that had to be reined in, banning both Stratos and Disc Commander. But just being a versatile card that didn't need other hero cards to function was also pretty good. You mill a Lightning Vortex, bam, board wipe without a discard. You mill a Monster Reborn, boom, Graveyard Revival your next turn. The options were plenty, but I need to stop gushing because, like a lot of cards lower on this list, the nostalgia factor brings it back a peg. And at number 6 on the list is Elemental Hero Necroid Shaman. Elemental Hero Necroid Shaman is a dark level 6 warrior fusion effect monster with 1900 attack and 1800 defense, which requires Elemental Hero Wildheart plus Elemental Hero Necroshade as materials to fusion summon, and has this effect. Must be fusion summoned and cannot be special summoned by other ways. When this card is special summoned, target one monster your opponent controls, destroy that target. Then special summon one monster from your opponent's graveyard to their side of the field. Okay, now here's a pretty nostalgic card, mainly because of playing either against it or playing it in my hero decks in a game I had on the Xbox 360 called Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's Decade Duels. Not only is it nostalgic for me from back in my high school days, I just really like the artwork, perfectly blending the two materials it needs together to form this mystical and dark being. I also was always fascinated with monsters, especially in old school Yu-Gi-Oh! That had a mismatched level and stat line, and Necroid Shaman here has that. 1900 and 1800 being good for a level 4 monster, while our boy here is a whole 2 levels higher at 6. All in all, I just find this card nostalgic, cool, and fascinating. And about halfway through the list at number 5 is Banisher of the Radiance. Banisher of the Radiance is a light level 3 fairy effect monster with 1600 attack and 0 defense, whose very short effect says, any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. Talk about a card I played against in Decade Duels. This guy used to be a staple in any banish-focused deck I either played in that game or what the NPCs played in theirs. One of said decks was Grenmaju, being a Macrocosmos on legs and having a solid attack for being a beat stick if needed. This thing was pretty decent. Paired with said Macrocosmos, Dimensional Fissure, and powerful cards like Necroface, you could really pump up Grenmaju to Aiza's attack to OTK levels. Nowadays, there are even more viable options, so monsters like Banisher of the Radiance don't make the cut, even in my janky strategies. I find it weird how he has the same aesthetic as the other fairy types in the set, but despite that, he's not part of the counter fairy strategy like the rest of them are. I guess he was banished from their realm and started doing his own thing. You get it? Cause ban. And up next at number 4 is Voltanis the Adjudicator. Voltanis the Adjudicator is a light level 8 fairy effect monster with 2800 attack and 1400 defense with this effect. After one of your counter trap cards has been activated and has resolved, you contribute all monsters you control to special summon this card. If this card is special summoned in this way, you can destroy cards your opponent controls up to the number of fairy-type monsters you tributed. And speaking of the counter fairies, we got a house of a card for back in the day. Maybe this thing is the one who banished Banisher of the Radiance from whatever realm the counter fairies live in. I'm pretty sure it's Sanctuary in the Sky. I've always loved both the Banishing and Counter Fairy decks due to them being NPC decks in Decade Duels. You can probably tell that I have quite a fondness for that game, although if you've been subscribed to me for a while, you'd know that already. So go ahead and do that. I'll wait. Anyway, I've always liked the aesthetic of these fairies, all of them being themed around crystals, as well as seemingly having no discernible face, only having an eye pattern on their heads. It gives them a mysterious, powerful, and kinda unsettling vibe, if I'm being honest here. And that's exactly why I love them so much. I love how much potential this particular monster has in terms of board breaking. It would be a Disneyland-ass situation, but if you had 5 fairies on the field and used them to summon this guy, he could pop up to 5 cards your opponent controls. That's no small number. Realistically, he'll be a kind of pseudo-Gores, surprising your opponent with a big dude just dropping on the field. The thing is, Gores was played in like every deck and had to be limited at one point. So what I'm saying is that saying that this card is super good was pretty cope, even if it felt so good to use it. And at our number 3 spot is Swift Birdman Joe. Swift Birdman Joe is a wind level 6 winged beast effect monster with 2300 attack and 1400 defense with an effect that reads: if you tribute summon this card by tributing a wind monster, return all spell and trap cards on the field to the owner's hands. Yo, tech card in Fluwanderees. Although in an ideal world where you have both the field spell and the continuous spell, and you're basically hijacking your opponent's turn, like Flu does, all while breaking their board, you don't really want to summon Birdman Joe since it'll just bounce your back row too, making them useless. Going second, I think he may work, just being a harder to use giant Trunade on legs. I didn't know this until researching for this video, but the reason he has just like a regular ass name like Joe is that he's based off of a character called Joe the Condor from a Japanese animated show called Gatchaman. I've always liked this guy for several reasons. For one, the artwork. Being inspired by the Harpy makes him both badass and scary. For another, his objectively good effect, even if a little too restrictive. And finally, the nostalgia. He was one of the earlier cards in my collection, being one of the before high school cards. I can't remember exactly when I owned a copy of him, but it was when I was either in late elementary school or middle school, since he came out when I was at the end of 5th grade. Just an all-around awesome card. He definitely deserves this higher spot on the list. And the runner-up spot on the list at number 2 is Macrocosmos. Macrocosmos is a continuous trap card which says, when this card resolves, you can special summon one Helios, the primordial sun, from your hand or deck. While this card is face up on the field, any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. Damn, this dude needs to eat something. Listen, I know he's probably ascended and his third eye has been opened and he sees the mysteries of the cosmos, but a motherfucker still gotta chow down here and there. I bet some of your dumbasses thought this was just a guy named Macrocosmos being in the pool like, Macrocosmos. Joking aside, I already talked about my love for banish focused decks, and this card is the gold standard when it comes to banishment floodgates. This can be an auto win against some decks, even today. I mentioned at the beginning of the video that I still play one card on this list in a couple decks I have in Master Duel. Well, this is the one. Played not only in my Grenmaju deck, but in my current favorite deck, Fluwanderees, since they don't give a rat's ass about being banished, and even benefit from it. Listen, I know floodgates are seen as toxic, but this one is one of the least annoying ones, at least in my opinion. Listen, they limited or banned most of the other continuous trap floodgates in Master Duel, the TCG, and the OCG, but Macrocosmos actually went from limited at one point to now being unlimited, so that says something, right? From the nostalgia of the Decade Duels days to the staying power of just how good this card can really be almost 20 years later, mind you. Damn, I'm getting old. I couldn't really put this card any lower than the runner-up spot. And the winner of my favorite cards in Enemy of Justice goes to Majestic Mech Goryu. Majestic Mech Goryu is a light level 8 fairy effect monster with 2900 attack and 1800 defense with an effect that says, you can tribute summon but not set this card with one tribute. If summoned this way, during the end phase, send it to the graveyard. This card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. Unlike the last entry, I'm pretty sure this card saw no competitive play. It's just an absolutely ass card. But beside that, this is one of my favorite monsters of all time, let alone in the set. Nostalgia, great stats, and the artwork. Man, the artwork. Even back as a kid, I knew there was something super cool, mysterious, and epic about it. It's a gigantic mix between a machine and some sort of biblically accurate angel. This thing absolutely screams divinity. I really like all the either Majestic or the malevolent mech monsters, but Goryu over here really takes the cake by miles. So despite being awful effect-wise, Majestic Mech Goryu soars above the competition and is solidly my favorite card in the set. Well, folks, that's another of my favorite cards in each set. Like I said in the intro, this set actually released nearly halfway into 2006, which is pretty late for being the first core set of that year. But anyway, that's it for my time, guys. Remember to like the video, subscribe if you're new here to become a scrubscriber, as well as becoming a channel member if you can afford it. And comment down below what your favorite cards are in Enemy of Justice. And I will see you guys next time.